We're not dogs. So you can learn new things, and it's just all dependent on, one, if you're willing to do it, and two, how much work you're willing to put in. Because if you just let it go, then it's just going to die off. And if you don't develop that grit, that passion is going to go away. And then you'll look back on your life and say, man, why didn't I do the thing? Why didn't I do the thing I wanted to? Why didn't I get after it more? And that's the story I don't want you telling yourself. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the podcast. I am continuing the book that I'm reading or writing. Sorry, I am reading books, but we're not going to be talking about that today. So I'm still writing my book, and then this is going to be chapter 2 of my working copy of the book. And to kind of build along with what I talked about in the last episode, I wanted to kind of make it a focus that the 2 most important principles that I have come to realize will make you successful in every single aspect of your life are consistency and discipline, self-discipline. Those 2 things, if you are able to harness them correctly, they will take you places that you can't even comprehend right now, because it's been a dream until you start practicing these things and you start really taking ownership of your life. But those 2 things, discipline and consistency, that was what we talked about in the last episode. Now, this episode is building on that, and we're going to be talking about self-control. This is something a lot of people who have asked me about, is how do you develop more self-control? How did you become the person that you are today? How are you able to go to the gym when you are tired or you're beat up or it's been a hard week of training, whatever the story might be, like you might be busy. Where do you find the discipline to go and do the thing that you know you need to? That's a question I get a lot. And I think the answer will change based on the person that is applying the principle to their life. But that all said, self-control is something that I'm not going to beat around the bush, is incredibly hard to develop. And it takes so much effort to start on the journey of self-control. And I think a lot of that comes from the reason that we live comfortable lives. And the goals and the challenges that we set out for ourselves aren't usually comfortable goals or easy to obtain. And because of that, we know what we need to do in order to reach that goal. And sometimes doing that is just hard by itself. And a good example of this is like marathon training, kind of what I was just talking about. Like, how do you find time, or where do you find time in your day, especially on those days when you feel like you don't have any motivation, you have no willpower to keep going through these workouts, you're done. Like, how do you go and get it done? What's the secret? Well, there is no secret. The thing that determines your success in whatever pursuit you're going after is fully dependent on your work that you're putting in. And I'm listening to this book right now called Relentless from Tim Grover. He coached Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Dwayne Wade, so many other people. But the way that he talks about the work in this book is super fascinating. I would go recommend listening to this. There are some swear words, so look out for that. But it's interesting because he talks about how all of these just phenomenal players like Michael, like Kobe, like Dwayne Wade, all these people, of course there were days when they hated doing the work, but they know that they needed to get it done because they loved the results more than the work. And they were addicted to that success. They were addicted to winning. And that helped them understand that, you know what? this work is going to be hard to get done today, but I want to win. I want to become the best that I can be. And since that's the case, I'm willing to put myself out there and force my body to work in my favor, because these goals are more important to me than taking it easy today. And I think that's just a good, I guess, a good way that we can start this podcast, because I want to emphasize how important it is that if you have goals that you want to pursue, the only person that's going to be able to achieve them is yourself. And if the goal is more important to you than the easy path or the easy route, then sometimes you're just going to have to suck it up and get the work done. And there's no easy way to say that, but it's true. Like some days you're going to have to bite your lips or bite your tongue, whatever it is, to get you through that workout, get you through the day, and you'll be finished up. But I was having this conversation with my cousin Parker last night. So I'm training him. I'm his coach right now. He's training for a half marathon coming up here on Cinco de Mayo, and he is just in the thick of it right now. He's trying to get his speed increased, and so he wants to work on getting faster. And he was telling me the other day, he's like, yeah, I was having a hard run and I did not want to finish it, but I did. And I was like, well, first off, I'm proud that you stuck to it and you were able to fight through those feelings, because everyone has them. And so, one, recognize that that's okay. And then I told him about the 30% rule, which is 30% of your runs, you're going to feel like you're on top of the world. Nothing can stop you. Maybe you can go for an extra mile because like your body feels good. Another 30% are going to be mediocre, just average runs. Just, you showed up, you got it done, you leave. The other 30% are going to be awful to get through. You're going to question why you want to go after this goal. You're going to question yourself. You're going to see how many miles you have left and be like, are you serious? Like, I still have 6 to go. Like, this is insane. And the remaining 10%, you're going to hate your life during the runs. I was trying to paint this picture to him and say, listen, you just have to take a perspective. You have to understand that these things are hard to do. And that brings us to the first thing I want to talk about in this podcast about self-control is our brains are regulated by something called the prefrontal cortex. And this is kind of like a contrast with like impulsive behaviors managed by other areas of the brain. But the prefrontal cortex is fascinating to me. And Andrew Huberman was talking about this with David Goggins, but it's this part of your brain that grows the more that you push into discomfort, the more you do things that you don't want to do. And scientists have found that people with a large prefrontal cortex have a longer lifespan, and ultimately they determined that a prefrontal cortex shows you the person's will to live, which is fascinating to me. That this part of the brain grows the more you do things that you don't want to do. And the more you do things you don't want to do, the more you're willing to live, and you're living a life. The things that I do with my body, by running as much as I do, by pushing myself in the gym, eating the way that I do, it's all for a reason. It's for this reason so I can enjoy life. And it might sound strange to some people, but I find great satisfaction in challenging myself in ways that I don't necessarily do on a regular basis. Like my life is pretty simple physically. Like if I didn't work out, I would wake up, go to work, come home, hang out with Al, and do whatever. If there wasn't the gym in there, I would have a very sedentary life. And that's not what I like doing, because I'm under the belief that if I'm able to have a healthy body, I'm able to experience more of life. And so I just wanted to paint that picture of your will to live is determined almost by the prefrontal cortex. Obviously, I'm not a scientist, So come at me if I'm saying anything wrong. But willpower comes into play here. And willpower is interesting. It's something that I am testing on myself, because what I'm realizing is willpower sometimes can be like a tank. At the end of the day, usually that tank is on empty, right? And that's when people binge at night. That's when people do things that take them out of their goals, because they've gone through their whole day doing difficult things. And then nighttime comes, that willpower is like kind of easing up, and you're like, you know what? Man, I just want to relax a little bit. And the willpower eases up. You grab the Cheetos. Your goals are out the window. But willpower actually does decrease over the day. With that in mind, one thing that you can do is recognize when your willpower is depleted and plan your most challenging tasks in the times when your willpower is the highest. Usually that could be after like you eat some food and you're feeling good. It's like you have a meal, or if you get a good night's sleep. But for me, one of the hardest things that I do through in any given day is working out, because I challenge my body and I push myself in ways that I don't get to do throughout the day. And so I need that workout to be done in the morning, because if I go throughout my day, if I wake up, go to work, and then come home, with someone who talks about discipline as much as I do, there's probably an 80% chance that I'm not working out if I go throughout my day without starting in the morning. And so you have to recognize the same thing for yourself. When is your willpower the highest? When are you most motivated to go do the thing? When can you really push yourself and try to, expand that willpower? If you recognize that, when nighttime comes around and you reach for the Ben and Jerry's in the freezer on a regular basis because your willpower is depleted, first off, throw the Ben and Jerry's away so you don't grab it. If it's not in your house, you can't eat it. Second, just recognize that and say the next day, be like, okay, well, I don't want to eat that Ben and Jerry's. I know my willpower is pretty shot at the end of the day. So I'm just going to know that I'm going to get those feelings, and I'll sit with it for a second, and then it'll pass. So just recognize when your willpower is strongest and plan your activities around that. I think that's something that's really helpful for self-control, is just learning more about yourself, learning what gets you excited, learning more about like when you do have the most willpower. It's fun. It's an experiment. So look at yourself as a scientist and go try some of these things that you don't necessarily do on a regular basis. And you'll be surprised of like what things you can accomplish. So keep that in mind. The next thing I want to talk about is identifying triggers and creating countermeasures, kind of with the same kind of thing that I was just talking about with willpower. But a lot of this comes down to like emotional intelligence. And what I mean by that is like you need to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions. That's one thing that I've come to learn, is if you're able to recognize your emotions, what they're telling you, all this stuff, you will learn more about yourself than you ever have before. And I'm going to get a little vulnerable here, but last November, I started going to therapy because I didn't know really too much about like my own emotions. I've suppressed them my entire life pretty much. But going to therapy helped me understand like I wasn't broken, and I had normal human feelings that every other human has. And I just didn't understand what they were. And so it was a time when I was a little bit depressed. But I realized really quickly, you know what? It's just being a human. Some days you're going to feel like crap. And I didn't even know that about myself. And so my emotional intelligence is pretty low, obviously. But if you have a high emotional intelligence, you'll be able to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions a little bit better. My wife, Allie, is one of the best people that I look to as an example of emotions. She understands them. She knows how to respond to people who are either telling her a super exciting story or telling her a story that is just the saddest thing, she's able to emulate and like reflect their own emotions back to them. And it's just super impressive that she's able to pick up on that. Because I think she does the same thing with herself. She knows when she's having a bad day. She knows when she's having a great day. She knows the little things that make her super happy. Like she'll step outside and the breeze will hit her face and she'll look at me and say, I just love wind. And it's the cutest. But she just, knows what makes her happy, and her emotional intelligence is high. And so I want you to start asking yourself questions about your emotions. Like if you feel sad all of a sudden, say, hey, why am I feeling this? Is this something I got to deal with, or is this just going to pass? If you're angry, maybe you need to go eat something, because anytime I'm pissed off, I usually need to go eat like a beef stick or, something like that to get my mind off and make me a little happier. So just start recognizing these things, understand who you are as a person, and, just design your life around that and start working into it. One thing that you could do if you wanted to is like journal. And I know I talk a lot about journaling on this podcast, but I talk about it because it's super important to me. Journaling has helped me understand the thoughts that go into my head, when my willpower is high, like all these different things, which has helped me understand myself more and led to more self-control in my life. And so you could journal just to do that. So give that a shot. But during this whole thing, and this is the next thing I want to talk about, is building mental resilience. This is the biggest question I get all the time from people is, how do I build more mental resilience? Well, I'm not going to give you an easy answer. I'm not going to tell you what you need to do to become more mentally resilient, because every single person is different. And I might not be the best person to speak on this. But mental resiliency comes from consistent work. It comes from sticking to it when you don't want to do it. It comes from cultivating grit. Like grit is a combination of your passion and your perseverance. If you're able to develop grit, I guarantee you'll make strides for your long-term goals. Because like I said, if you have grit, that means you have passion. And if you have passion, you need to persevere and get through those hard times, because otherwise your passion's going to die. And you have to keep that fire fueled. If you're not getting excited about your goals anymore, think about what you can do to make them exciting again. I just went through this exercise with myself with running. I was kind of getting bored, and I'm doing lots of longer runs now because I'm training for my ultra marathon. Because of that, like I'm running longer, and sometimes I'm getting bored because like it's not focused on speed. I'm not trying to run this race in X amount of time. It's not like training for a sub 3 where you are doing speed workouts twice a week and all these things. An ultra marathon, I just need to run for hella long times. Like I got to run for 32 miles nonstop up the mountains. I got to cruise 6,000 feet of elevation gain. That's going to be hard. But going back to what I was talking about, sorry, I go on tangents, guys. But having a way to make your goals more exciting is very important for long-term success. You have to be flexible with your goals, and you have to look at them almost fluid. So for me, I was kind of getting bored with running, and I was like, okay, what can I change? What is something that I want to do that I said I wanted to get done in the past? Like, what could that be? And for me, it was like, I want to read more. I want to understand people on podcasts better, because sometimes I'll just turn it on at work or when I'm at the house and not pay too much attention to it and not learn what I want to learn. And so now I've decided that like, hey, I'm going to listen to audiobooks. I'm going to listen to talks, podcasts when I'm running, because when I do that, then I'll force myself to focus on what they're saying and being in the moment then. Now that's helped me shape my running now to where I'm able to zone out and just focus on whatever I'm listening to, really helping me continue to develop that grit, because I have a passion for running, and persevering is the hard part. So fighting off injuries, all that kind of stuff, it goes into it. And I didn't want to lose my passion for running. And so I refueled the fire. I figured out what I needed to do to keep that passion going. And it's learning during my runs. And I love that opportunity. I feel so lucky that I'm able to have all this content at my fingertips where I can learn. And so just try and understand that grit takes a while to cultivate, but you need to always focus on just maintaining that passion. Now, this next one, I shared a little bit about this concept in previous episodes, but look at yourself as the main character of your story. This has been so fun for me. Like again, this is giving me being vulnerable, but I've been like looking at my life as like, okay, well, I'm going to live a life that I want someone to be able to like make a pretty cool movie about. This movie would not be cool, by the way. It would just follow me around running and going to work and hanging out with my wife, which I guess that's a lot of movies these days. I could probably sell more tickets than Marvel. Shout out to Marvel. You guys have really tanked. Marvel did not develop grit because the passion for their movies obviously depleted, and now they're churning out trash. Thoughts with Brett. So keep working on grit and look at yourself as the main story character, and it'll be fun. Like, I walk around the grocery store sometimes and like I'll put on Kanye and just walk around and be like, oh yeah, this is sick. This is just the soundtrack to my life right now. Yeah, just cruising Kanye. Anyways, that helps you with mental resilience though, because then you ask yourself the question of like, okay, well, if I was watching a movie, would I want to watch a movie about some guy eating Cheetos on the couch, or would I want to watch a movie about someone who's working effortlessly towards their goals, like consistently pushing? That's what I want to see. If you went and saw Rocky and he's sitting there eating Cheetos instead of punching giant meat bags, he's punching the meat bags, that would be a pretty crappy movie. So don't be like Rocky punching or eating Cheetos. Go punch those meat bags. Go punch those meat bags. Someone make a shirt with that, please. I'll sell it on my website. But one thing that we're going to change topics here. I feel like I'm in a weird spot. We're going to go to talk about habit formation, which I discussed a little bit in the last episode, but I'll start with a story. So I was talking to my brother. I'm also coaching him, and it's just fun hearing his goals and like seeing him make strides to like his successes. And he's becoming a phenomenal runner. So I'm super proud of him for that. But one thing that I shared with him is like, I need you to foam roll every single day, at least twice a day, because I just went through something. I have runner's knee, and I think that came from the marathon that I just ran. But runner's knee, it's like patella tendonitis pretty much, but it hurts so bad. And so like for the first mile to 2 miles of my runs, I'm usually limping and it hurts. But I talked to my coach and she's like, well, if you just continue to foam roll, like you need to really work on your quads, foam roll and stretch, and it'll hopefully work itself out. And so I've been just religious about it. I've been doing it. I do it usually after my runs and then at nighttime. That's when I foam roll. And then I'll stretch before my runs, stretch after my runs, and then stretch at nighttime. So I've been super religious about it. My knee's gotten a lot better. And so I told my brother, I was like, I need you to do this because otherwise you're going to potentially run into some of these injuries. And if we're treating the injury while you're having the pain, then we're already too late. We need to get ahead of it. And so that's why I'm like, you need to start foam rolling. And he's on week 2 of that, of me being super passionate about it. But in our coaching program, I have our weekly goals. And I told him, I was like, it's going to be a goal until it's a habit. And once it's a habit, we can take it off. But I need you to be foam rolling every day so you can run longer. I need you healthy. And that small thing that like I mentioned to him is it's going to be a goal until it's a habit. These habits take a long time to develop. Like I don't expect my brother to just, I tell him, hey, go foam roll, and he does it every single day. No, it has to be reminded. One, like you need a reminder. And so I'm harping on him with that. And then two is you have to actually do it. You have to practice it. You have to consistently stay on top of it. Because if you're not staying on top of it, that's when the injury can creep in and boom. So look at the goals that you have. Like if there's a habit you want to break or if there's a habit you want to build upon, then set small milestone goals for yourself and have it a goal until it becomes a habit. Another thing that I want to do more is read. And so I'm not going to say like a time period or X amount of pages that I need to read to have a successful reading session. I think that's stupid, but I want to read every single day. That's my goal. It could be for 5 minutes or it could be for an hour and a half. I don't know, but it's a goal until it's a habit. And the same principle applies to you. So identify something in your life that you want to get better at and start working towards it, because I want your goals to become a routine. And what I mean by that is if you're able to establish a routine for yourself through these habits, whatever that is, you will reduce your decision fatigue. You won't have to worry about certain things that you're trying to accomplish. And it'll provide a framework for new habits that you want to do. Like if you want other habits in your life and you don't know how to start, well, then just start something small and start doing something small and then work hard towards it. Learn that you can, learn new habits. I hate the phrase, you can't teach old dogs new tricks, because we're not dogs. So you can learn new things, and it's just all dependent on, one, if you're willing to do it, and two, how much work you're willing to put in. Because if you just let it go, then it's just going to die off. And if you don't develop that grit, that passion is going to go away. And then you'll look back on your life and say, man, why didn't I do the thing? Why didn't I do the thing I wanted to? Why didn't I get after it more? And that's the story I don't want you telling yourself. I want you to be proud of the life that you're making. And if you want to be proud of the life that you have and who you're becoming, it's going to require self-control. It's going to require discipline and consistency with trying to build these habits, with trying to develop that mental resiliency like I was talking about. But these habits, if you're able to fully optimize them and then implement them into your life, you will start making huge strides. And that's what I'm trying to teach you, is you can reach that goal that you have. It's just dependent on how much effort you're willing to do. Like, just think about that. Are you willing to put yourself out there and put in the work needed to reach the goals that you've set for yourself? If the answer is yes, then what's holding you back? Go fight. Go fight for your goals, because we only have one life, and you don't want to live a life that you regret not trying the thing. Don't live a life of regret. Be excited about the things that you're trying to accomplish. Be excited about the life that you're developing and making. And those habits will come along. They'll organically happen. But just be patient too. I want to make sure that that's something very, very important also, because these things take time. So just be patient. One thing that is super helpful when you're talking about habit formation, when you're talking about self-control, is the role of community in this. And it doesn't have to be a full community of people. Like my brothers and my cousin, my mom, a couple other people that I work with, I'm their coach. And so they're accountable to me, and I make sure that they're hitting their workouts. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're reaching their nutrition goals. They're hitting the goals that they said they wanted to the week before, and they're being consistent. And so that's my role in their training, is just making sure that they are, one, feeling good. If we need to adjust anything, we will. And then two, I'm there being like, hey, what happened? How come you didn't hit your 6-mile run today? What's going on? Do we need to pull back? Like, are you being a baby? I'm sometimes not the nicest coach, but I do work with my brother. So there's a caveat there. If you want me to coach you, I'll be nice. Shout out to my coaching program. Anyways, but use people around you, like, one, for accountability. And then I love this podcast because I'll say, like, hey, I'm training for an ultra marathon. I'm going to run it. And then I have to do it, because otherwise, like, I'm not going to say that I'm going to run an ultra marathon, come back on here and be like, yeah, it was too hard. But you guys should be more mental resilient. That's important. Like that. I'm not going to be a, what's it called? What's the word? Let me tone my voice down for a second. Let me run through the word. A hypocrite. There we go. Boom. I'm not going to be a hypocrite to you guys. I am putting in work towards my goals. I want to accomplish them. And it comes with a lot of bumps in the road, and it's not easy. And so me sharing my story with you is almost like, hey, I'm right beside you trying to hit my own goals, and you are making strides towards yours. Let me be a resource for you and tell you the things that I've learned that have helped me get to where I am today. So that's my goal there. But rely on other people around you. And that could be groups, that could be your spouse, that could be your kids. I don't have kids yet, but I can see that being one of the biggest motivators, being like, man, I don't want my kids to look at me as someone who's not pushing themselves. And I want them to be proud of their dad. I want my future kids to be like, yeah, my dad he's a beast. He says that he does something and he does it. He's also there helping other people do the same thing for themselves. And I want them to be proud of me. And so they're not necessarily in my community, but I think about them a lot, my future kids. This is another thing where I'm outing myself a little bit, I guess, some strategies, but I think about them a lot. Like, I want to make them proud. And then I want to set the example of what it's like to live a life that you're proud of. And the only way to do that is to be proud of the life you have, by being proud of the habits that you have, by being proud of the goals that you are trying to accomplish, and making sure that aligns with your values, your personal beliefs, and everything in between. And that's just kind of all my thoughts on community. It's super important to have people around you supporting you and cheering you on. But really what it comes down to, the person who's going to be cheering you on the most is yourself. And you have to push yourself. You have to learn the triggers that throw you in a funk, and you got to learn the triggers that get you excited, put some fire under you, and push you towards your goals. So just be patient. Understand that this is going to be a process for you, but rely on other people. Like, that's what I'm trying to get at with this whole section, is you're not going after your goals by yourself. Yes, the work is determined by you, but other people will support you. Other people will be there for you. You can learn from other people how they get the goal that you want. If there's someone at work who's closing a bunch of deals, go ask them questions. Say, how are you doing this? And they will share it, and you'll make more progress towards your goals. So use other people, because you can learn a lot from experiences. And one thing actually I want to bring up on this is I love reading biographies. Biographies are probably my favorite books, like self-help books. My opinion on those. History books I love because they're just unbelievable stories sometimes. I need a good fiction book, but my favorite of all are biographies. Biographies about men and women that I admire and am very impressed by. But the reason I think that it's important to read biographies and why I love it so much is it shows me that other people have done the things that I want to before, and that I can reach the goals that I strive for myself. Like if I'm reading books about how Steve Jobs started Apple or how Winston Churchill defeated the Germans and all these other things that are just unbelievable stories, like that gives me so much fire to be like, okay, all these stories are already out there of people doing the thing that I say I want to do, then I can do the thing. I just have to know what work to put in, where to focus my efforts on, and where I need to improve. And biographies will literally tell you that. It will say, okay, yeah, Elon Musk, he started PayPal. Here's some things that he ran into that were really hard for him. But eventually he learned X, Y, and Z, sold the company, and became a billionaire. It's like they outline the problems for you. They outline these people's lives, the decisions that they made to get them to where they were at, and a lot of the attributes that made them the people that they were. It's super unique to be able to sit down and read about someone's life and read about the habits that they had, read about how their relationships were, because that's another thing is some of these people are just like crazy relationships. Anyways, that was a tangent on biographies, but I love them because they show you that you can do the things that you say you want to do, and that there's evidence out there that your goals are not that far out of reach. So try it. Read a biography. Find someone you admire and read their biography. Last thing I just want to touch up on before we wrap up this episode is just mindfulness and meditation. This has been it's been a topic that's been on my mind a lot lately, is mindfulness and meditation. Just being in the moment and deepening your own self-awareness. And it's hard. It really is hard, especially with all the distractions we have at our fingertips. But if you can find little things to do in your life to help with mindfulness and meditation, I want you during those times to think about your goals. During these times of meditation or mindfulness, whatever you want to say, that could be you sitting down and doing nothing. That could be you going on a walk. It could be journaling. It could be anything, really. But during these times of mindfulness, I want you to think about your goals. And I want you to think about what decisions can you be making that can get you closer to your goals, and what things can you take out of your life to, one, simplify your life and help you progress even further towards your goals. Go into a mindfulness exercise with a goal in mind of something you want to focus on, something you want to meditate on, but just be in that moment. In the book Relentless, it's fascinating because Tim Grover's talking about all these high-performing players who, when they're in the game, they are in the game. And there is nothing that they are thinking about besides the game and what they're doing and how to win. And he's telling the story about the playoffs when Tim Grover's sitting on the bench and Michael's playing. I can't remember who they were playing, but one of the top players from the other team comes off the court, sits down, and puts his head right in his hands. And Tim Grover looks at his friend and says, "That guy, he's checked out. He's gone." And pretty much saying like he's not going to be able to win the game because he's thinking about other things right now. And he also tells a story about Kobe. This is awesome. So some guy's guarding him and Kobe's talking trash the whole time. He's like, "You can't guard me, bro. Like, try. I want you to try." And then they're going down the court. Kobe shoots a three and airballs it. And the guy looks at Kobe and Kobe goes, "I'm still in the game, bud. Like, that was nothing. I'm still here." Pretty savage. But seriously, like when you are being mindful, I want you to go into it with a goal. Like, I don't want you to just go sit and let nothing happen. Like you need to have purpose behind your mindfulness practice. Because one, I have found that as you try to be more present in your life, you will improve your patience, your decision making, even things as like eating. Like if you're able to be present in the moment, like you'll be surprised, be like, oh yeah, well, I'm not hungry, I don't need to eat. Or if you are eating, like slow down, just enjoy the moment. Another thing is like, can you be more actively listening to the people around you? And just try and focus on that. Another thing, I think this is a great, if you're listening to this podcast, if you're focused on getting after it, I want you to start doing this. I think every listener would benefit from what I'm about to say. And that is having a mindful morning. Now, I'm not saying you need to have like 100% crazy routine where it's super dialed in. No, I want you to start 5 minutes every single day. You don't have to write this down, but I want you to start 5 minutes in a mind of gratitude. Wake up and think about 1, 2, 3, 4 things that you're grateful for. And then just breathe a little bit, relax, and start your day in the moment. Don't think about what you have to get done at work. Don't think about the kids' practice that's coming up that you got to take them to. Don't think about anything. Don't think about what you did yesterday. I want you to think about things that you're grateful for, because we have so much. We are so lucky. And it doesn't take too much to just sit down and thank God or whoever you believe in for 5 minutes a day. Just sit down, be with your thoughts, be at peace, and just see what happens. But be grateful, because that's like the biggest thing for me, that like if you want to be mindful in any way, just start expressing gratitude. Start looking at the things in your life that you have and be happy for them. Because so many people are less fortunate than you. So many people are less fortunate than me. I mean, truly am blessed beyond belief. And I recognize that there are so many other people out there not in my situation or with my circumstances. And I understand that. But if you don't think I'm going to thank God every single day for the things that I have, then you got a storm coming, my friend. Because gratitude is something I think just puts you in the moment and forces you to stay there. Because you're not thinking about how I'm going to get that next Porsche or what you need to be doing to your house renovations. Nothing like that. So be grateful. Be grateful. And all these things we've talked about today are habits of the resilient. These are strategies, these are tactics that will get you to become the person that you know you can be, and that you have always imagined is the main character of your story. And it will take time, because we are human. We are not creatures of wanting to challenge ourselves or push ourselves. We are wired for survival. But sometimes you got to just bring the boss out. Tell that comfort voice in your head to shut the hell up. You got work to do. And those conversations sometimes aren't easy with yourself, because what it comes down to, and this is the reality of goals and reaching goals, achieving goals, is you already know what you have to do. You already know. If you want to run a marathon, you know what training is going to go into it. If you want to lose 10 pounds, you know you're going to have to eat less and move more. If you want to save more money, that means you can't be buying random crap all the time. You already know what you have to do to achieve the goals that you've set for yourself. So just start today and start forming these habits. Start developing that grit and reach your goals. Get after your goals. Don't wait another day, because this time on earth is limited. We don't have another day. That's one thing I know for a surety is I don't know if I have another day. I could get hit by a semi truck. I could be driving down the street and a deer could jump through my windshield. Like, I could die at any moment. And that's another part about being human. So be grateful for today. Be grateful for the opportunity that you have to challenge yourself and to start living. That's really what it comes down to is as soon as you start challenging yourself and you open up that door, you just open Pandora's box and you're going to start realizing you are capable of so much more and you will start living. That wraps up chapter 2 of my book. Habits of the Resilient is what that chapter is called. And the last thing I want to say before I wrap up is just I appreciate everyone's feedback and for listening to this podcast. I know that there are so many others out there. And so the fact that you take some time just to listen to me, to spend some time with me and hear my thoughts. I know I'm 26. I know I don't have all the life experience under my belt that other people do. But that all said, I do think that I am learning things that have helped me reach my own goals, and I want to share them with other people. So I appreciate you all listening to this, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Take some time, be grateful for the things you have, and until next episode, everybody, keep getting after it. Take care.